So I have a friend, great friend named Cheryl, and she and I met each other at a very challenging time in our lives. Both of us had a loved one in hospice at the same time. So we bonded quite deeply and have walked a journey with each other in friendship for the last, it's about 3.5 years now. So we got together about 2 weeks ago and had a real nice long conversation. So Cheryl's going through some more challenges. And I thought of this journey that we're taking in self-mastery these weeks leading up to Easter as I was talking to her. And so she's got more serious illness happening in her family. 2 members of her family are gravely ill. She's also kind of the go-to person for one of those relatives. And so her day, as she goes through it, is often stopped by a phone call where she has to drop everything and show up somewhere and kind of help, whether it's to help her loved one who's ill or to help her mother, who her uncle is living with. So things are pretty precarious right now. On top of that, she's got another relative who she's also very close to, who she's walking this path with, and with all of this going on top of some things happening at home in her marriage, life is pretty challenging. And what she said to me, and just really opened my heart to her, was she said, "I just feel like I'm failing at all this." So I think this path of self-mastery, this path that we walk, trying to deal with the things in our life, gets really bumpy sometimes. And I think we assume, just like Cheryl did, that if things feel wonky, if things feel crazy, if things feel chaotic, if things seem to be falling apart around us, that somehow we're not making it happen. And I told her I thought that's not the case. That the road is often fraught with hurdles and speed bumps and all kinds of things getting in your way. And then you just feel like you're not able to hold on. Where you just feel like you're failing. That's what she said to me. I feel like I'm failing at this. So I just kind of apprised her and let her talk and let her get everything out. Because sometimes stuff just builds up, especially if you're the go-to person. If you're the one everybody's looking to for stability, or somebody who is supposed to kind of make it all feel better for a little bit. And then they feel better, and then you're just kind of left wondering, okay, now what about me? Who takes care of me in all of this? What about my walk through this journey? And everything just feels like it's falling apart. So she talked, and I could relate to some of what she was going through. And on top of all this, she tells me she gets up at 4:30 in the morning, she goes to the gym, and she swims just about every day of the week. She's also teaching swimming to adults who've never swum before. She also competed in a swimming meet. She is taking care of home. When she showed up, she looked fit and healthy. We could laugh about a lot of stuff. We laughed about her journey, about our respective journeys. We laughed about some of the things we've each been through. And I looked at her and I said, "Cheryl, this isn't failing. You're not failing. It just feels like everything's crumbling around you." I remember after my mother had passed away and I was still going to see the chaplain at hospice, and I said the same thing to him. Because, you know, when you're just real raw, and everything feels terrible, everything. And he did the same thing. He looked at me and he said, "You showed up, got matching shoes on. You're obviously have showered and you're taking care of yourself." You know, showed up, my clothes were buttoned right. Obviously, looking like I'm taking care of myself. But sometimes it just doesn't feel like it. And he looked at me and he said, "It's all okay. This is normal. This is normal. This is just what the path looks like some days." So self-mastery doesn't mean that we've made it all go away and that the road is smooth and we got it all together and you're handling it like you think somebody wants us to handle it, somebody else, like others are judging. And maybe some are. I say, who cares? We think that there's this bar that we have to meet. And that if we don't meet it, we have failed. And so I think the word failure has no place in this journey on self-mastery. Just like we were talking about the dawn wall and the gentlemen who were scaling that huge piece of rock. And the one gentleman who looked like he wasn't going to make it when the two were climbing, and he spent 5 days climbing and falling, climbing and falling, climbing and falling and falling and falling and falling, and he kept getting back up. I read once that mastery is when you do the right thing at the right time, all the time. And sometimes the right thing is just getting back up. Sometimes the right thing is just getting back up when you think you've fallen, or failed, or judged yourself as failing. Getting up and walking again, taking another step, dusting yourself off, shaking off whatever you think is going on, taking a breath, getting in the pool and swimming again like she does on a daily basis. Continuing to walk when all you feel is this inner scream inside. I know the inner scream. Whereas you're navigating through, something keeps saying, "I'm falling apart, oh my God, how do I do this?" I said that to myself when my mother was in the hospital after she had had her strokes. I said to myself, how am I going to do this? And in the next minute said, oh, I am doing this. I'm getting up every day, and I'm doing what I know to do. And I'm doing my best with everything that I have in my life at that time. Being aware of how I feel, having my feelings when I have them, letting go of my anger when I have it, calling on friends when I need them, letting them help me. Letting them help me. Sometimes mastery is about letting people in and letting them help you. Letting them walk with you. Like those two gentlemen on the wall, sticking with each other. Somebody you can look to when you've fallen and it's time to get back up. When you're tired and you don't think you can do it anymore. So mastery is not about it all going away or taking some kind of control of it and making it something that it's not at the time. I know sometimes we wish it wasn't like it is. And I think self-mastery is about being aware of those moments when you want it to be something else and saying, but this is what I've got. You know, in that book, Discover the Power Within You, Eric Butterworth wrote that in that moment when Jesus was on the cross, it's always quoted that he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? And Eric Butterworth said that, I think it's in the Aramaic translation, that it's not those words, that it's translated into, for this moment I was meant to be here, in this moment, in the thick of it, in the tough of it, in the weeds, in the tall grass, trying to find your way out. That even though it's messy, you know this was meant for me, right here, right now. This is mine. I'm doing it. And it might not feel good, and it might not look good. And sometimes not only does it not look good, it feels pretty awful. It looks awful. You know, those moments when it feels like everybody has run away. Jesus' moments in Gethsemane. Where are you guys? 12 of you. Can't find any of you. Here in my deepest hour. Like Raheem was singing in that song. When the people disappoint us. When they're not there. I had moments when my mother was in the hospital and I dialed 5 or 6 numbers of friends and they weren't there. Of course they have lives, they're doing other things, but what I felt was abandoned in the moment. But things started to happen then. That's when some gentleman who I'd never met and never noticed there in the family room at hospice came up and asked me if I wanted a hug. Still one of the most amazing moments of my life. Self-mastery, I think, in that moment was me saying yes to him. And for several moments, he held me. So he was in his mastery, and I think I was in mine because I let him in. I let him in. So self-mastery may not feel like what you think it should feel like. That you're in charge. Sometimes it just means being open. Open to the journey. Open to what you're called to. Open to what's happening. Keeping your eyes open even though you want to shut them and say, no, 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 not this. Continuing to go over those speed bumps. Continuing to jump the hurdles. Maybe slide under them. I say save yourself and get there the best way you can. You're still on the journey. I think that's what self-mastery is. Saying I'm going to stay on the journey. There's so much judgment about what we should do and how we should be in these tough moments. And I think all you have to do is be real. Be real. Keep walking. When you meet an obstacle, stand. Stand firm. Remind yourself of who you are, that you are divine, that you have this foundation. That was the first week we talked about, that masters always know on what they stand. And how do you feel it again? How do you get the courage? How do you get the strength to take another step? So just to praise the moment. Think about it. Be in it. Let yourself be open. Let yourself feel. And say yes for this moment. I was meant to be here. This is mine. That's what masters really do. Don't judge the fact that it's not pretty. And if you do, say that's okay. I'm still in it. And then you keep walking. Keep walking. When you get the next inspiration, the divine inspiration, when divine mind gives you another clue as to what the next step is, do that. And just stay on the path. If you need to pivot, pivot. When Spirit tells you to pivot, do that. The path doesn't have to be straight. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it cuts a corner. Sometimes you get to the corner, you can't see what's around it, right? So you get there, and then it feels a little crazy because you're looking down and maybe it just feels like there's an abyss there. But when you turn the corner, you see the rest of the path. Self-mastery is being willing to stay on the path, no matter what it looks like. So I looked at Cheryl and I said, you are not just doing fine. This is what it looks like when you're kicking it. You're making it happen. Some days it's going to feel terrible. Doesn't mean you're not still on the path to self-mastery. Doesn't mean you failed. Self-mastery. You get to define what that means for you in that moment. Asking for help is not failing. It is strength and courage. That's what shows up when you ask for help. That's what shows up when you let a stranger take you in his arms and say, I'm your angel right now. Self-mastery. We're all on that path. We are all masters. So affirm it, especially in those moments when it feels like the stuff is just on the fan. And there's 10 fans around. Right? Remember we talked about the hazmat suit? Where you need a big shovel to shovel it all out, right? Doesn't mean you're not on the path. Just means sometimes you got to dig your way out of the stuff. Sometimes you got to have the shield on. So your faith, your spirituality, whatever it is you call it, spirit, God, my higher self, destiny, whatever you call it in. Call it in and stay on the path. Masters continue to walk. Remember 2 weeks ago we talked about practice, practice, practice. Keep those tools that you have, prayer, meditation, whatever it is that you read, music you listen to, stepping out in nature, sitting with your friends, the ones who love you, even though you feel messy, especially when you feel messy. Many of those people are in this room right now who aren't afraid of messy. Just stay on the path. Know that you haven't failed. Know that you're making it happen, that you're getting up. You're getting up, dressing up, you're showing up. Right, Jerry? One more time, again. One more time. Take a breath. Somebody just took a breath, a deep breath. Take a deep breath. It is all good. Remember, when you're in those moments when it's darkest, seems the most precarious, say, I was meant for this moment. I was meant for this moment. I was meant for this moment. And yes, I'll continue to walk through this. Self-mastery. The journey's not always pretty. Doesn't mean you're not on the path.